Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is pre-match build-up showtime as Liverpool get ready to take on Burnley in the Premier League on Thursday night off the back of a decent performance against Manchester United, certainly better than the last few that the team had turned out, but unfortunately yet another setback as we drop 2 more points in the Premier League title race and are now getting into a position where we're kind of assimilating into the chasing pack once again. You know, it remains to be seen what happens with Man City's game tonight, which is currently 0-0 at the start of the second half. While I'm recording this, Man U are also playing Fulham as well. So both of those games will have taken place before this match, and it will give us a much clearer idea of just how much ground we will have to gain on the teams at the top of the table with this game against Burnley. But the fact of the matter is, Liverpool are now in a position where they can't really afford to lose any more ground. You know, we've had a blip and we got ourselves into a position where, while that blip isn't ideal, it's not catastrophic for our season. You know, we got into an area where we were the leading team in the Premier League. We were very close to building up a bit of a margin between us and everyone else, and that's what I think was so frustrating. These last few matches have felt like a chance for Liverpool to really kick on and neutralise the title race a bit and make it much more about, you know, each team scrabbling to try and get to second and be as close as possible to Liverpool, kind of like it was at the similar stage last season. But now Liverpool have kind of, I think, got to take advantage of the position they're in. They're no longer the team at the top. The pressure's not really on them in that regard to kind of set the pace for everyone else. It's now much more about trying to keep up with the team at the top. And the fact of the matter is there's so many teams doing that it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. You know, Man United will probably slip down once Man City play their games in hand. Leicester, who are now also above us, regardless of whether we win our game in hand over them, all those teams are under the same kind of pressure that we're under. Of course, being the champions, it makes it a little bit different. And I think when you look at Liverpool's squad on paper, especially if they didn't have the injuries that they'd had going into the season, then you would certainly expect more of them than you would from Manchester United or Leicester City or maybe any other team in the Premier League, bar Manchester City. But the one thing that we can harness is that we are hopefully able to get a little bit out of the limelight and take that pressure off. And that will hopefully help Liverpool get over the issue that we're all having at the moment, which is putting the ball in the back of the net. Quite a simple one, quite an important part of the game of football and something that Liverpool have failed to do for the last 3 games. The first time that's happened in 16 years, I think it was 2005, back when Rafa Benitez was the manager, was the last time that we went 3 games without scoring. It's 21 years since we last went 4 Premier League games without scoring. So there's an unwanted record that Liverpool will not want to approach by not scoring in the game tomorrow. But one thing that was positive against Manchester United was, whereas in previous games we just didn't look like we had any idea how to make a goal happen, against Man United we were creating chances. It was just a matter of the players were fluffing their lines, the shots weren't going in, they were being, you know, shanked wide and everything like that. And the thing is, that sometimes happens in football. You get the odd game where things just don't go your way and you can create so many chances, dominate play, but the goalie has a worldie, or you hit the woodwork a couple of times, or all the players who are receiving the ball in the box just haven't got their shooting boots on. It definitely felt like the last one of those options was what was happening on Sunday. You know, like I said, we did create chances. We looked better than we had over the last few games. It was a clear improvement, I think, especially in the opening changes. But unfortunately, Liverpool just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. And that's something that, like I said, it can happen in football, and it kind of sways to and fro. You get the complete opposite end of the spectrum where we go to Selhurst Park in December just a few matches ago and put 7 past them, where, if we're being honest, you know, we maybe probably should have scored about 3 goals in that game. But the fact of the matter is the players just, you know, had their shooting boots on that day. Everything went their way, and of course everything's evened out since then. So in that regard, I think if we put in a similar performance to the one against Manchester United, then I'm not too worried about us scoring goals. I think we will eventually find our way through, although I think it will be interesting to see whether Jurgen Klopp, you know, makes the decision to make changes and try and build on what was created against Manchester United by adapting his setup further, or whether he's happy with what he saw on Sunday and wants to give that another go. But team news going into the game, the players that actually are and aren't going to be available for this match. Of course, Joel Matip is on everyone's minds at the moment, because I think that will play a huge role in the game, especially when you think about how Burnley are probably going to try and cause us problems up at our end of the pitch. Who we've got at centre half is going to be very, very key to that. So it would be great to have Joel Matip back, and it's looking Positive, there was almost an idea that he might even, play against Manchester United. That obviously never came to fruition. Clearly, in the training sessions before that game, he just didn't show the kind of sharpness and fitness that is necessary for a Premier League game. Certainly, a Premier League game of that calibre. Although this game you'd expect to see be slightly less intense, especially for the centre halves, and also Joel Matip will have been in full training for almost a week. I think he was back in training on Friday before the Manchester United game, so he's had a lot more time now. Jurgen did still say that he's going to be assessed before this match, so it's not 100% that he is fit and available for this game. Although, if I'm being perfectly honest, as I said, the centre-back that we put out to partner Fabinho in this game, of course Fabinho is almost definitely going to play, will have a huge bearing on how Burnley can look to cause us problems. And so as a result, I think Jurgen's just been a little bit careful not to give too much away, because he wants Burnley to basically have to spread themselves a little bit thinner and plan for multiple occasions, rather than, if they know who's going to play at centre-half, then it makes it a lot more easy for them to prepare for this game. So Matip is looking positive. Jota, unfortunately, is still a few weeks away. I think that's basically going to be the mantra for a while now. It reminds me a bit of the Thiago injury, where we were never told exactly how long it was going to be. I think heads would have fallen off if we'd known it was going to be somewhere around the 3-month mark. It always just seemed to be, it's a few weeks away, it's close, but it's not quite there yet. And I think we may be seeing something similar with Jota. By the sounds of it, he's still got his knee in the brace, so it's at least 2 or 3 weeks before he gets back into training. So I don't want to be too pessimistic about it, but it's probably going to be somewhere around about the month mark at least before we see Diogo Jota back in the first team, which is a shame, because we certainly do need him at the moment. He started the season so brilliantly, and someone with his uncanny ability to just find the back of the net on a regular basis is exactly what Liverpool need at the moment. But we are unfortunately going to have to find another solution to our problem that doesn't involve him, because he is still going to be out for another few weeks at least. So as for how I think Liverpool are actually going to line up, then I think it's of course going to be Alisson Becker in goal, almost definitely going to be Fabinho as the other centre half, and then I think it looks like Joel Matip will be partnering him. I think given the training he's done, like I said, I imagine Jurgen Klopp's being tight-lipped about it because he doesn't want to give anything away. And of course, with Joel Matip, you always have to be very careful with his fitness. There's every chance he has a fitness test in the morning and something underlying is flagged up, or he complains of a little bit of tightness in that groin muscle that's caused the problem over the last few weeks. And Jurgen just says, you know what, we're not going to risk it at all. But by all means, it looks like we are going to end up playing Joel Matip. I do think if he wasn't available, then we probably wouldn't be going for Jordan Henderson again, because when you look at Burnley and the way they're probably going to look to threaten us, it's very much high balls in the area, crosses into the box, trying to, have those burly forwards like Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes cause absolute mayhem for centre-halves and win balls in the air. And Jordan Henderson is probably going to struggle with that. I think if it wasn't for Matip, we'd probably be going with someone like Nat Phillips for this game. Obviously, you lose a little bit of playing out from the back when that is the case that you get with Jordan Henderson. Of course, you also get with Joel Matip. But you've also got to think about defensively. They could cause us serious problems if it's 2 midfielders, because even though Fabinho's been fantastic at centre-half, you've got to admit that one of his few weaknesses in that area is he's not quite as good at winning the ball in the area as the standard Premier League centre-half. So hopefully we've got Joel Matip back. I think that's going to be the case. But as I said, if he isn't available for this game, although I reckon that's unlikely, it will probably be, I think, Nat Phillips at centre-half instead of Jordan Henderson. And then at left-back, almost definitely going to be Andrew Robertson. Of course, we've got this FA Cup tie at the weekend at Old Trafford, which is going to give us a little bit of a chance to rest some of the players that have been being pushed through brick walls over the last few weeks. Although, interestingly, Jurgen said his squad is actually in a very good shape at the moment. There's not too many issues with fatigue. The players aren't that tired, which kind of makes sense because they've come off the back of a decent break, had a bit more time to, get their fitness to a reasonable level on the training ground, where they're not just in an endless cycle of play, recovery. They've now been in a cycle where they've basically been doing kind of the same amount of strain every single day, and that's going to be a lot better for them. So I don't think he's going to rotate as much for the FA Cup at the weekend as maybe he would have done under normal circumstances. And also, of course, with it being Manchester United, you expect some first teamers to start in that game at Old Trafford. But I think Robertson may get a rest. In the meantime, he's definitely going to start this game. I think Trent will probably start as well, although as I said after the Man U game, it looks like he needs a rest, both in terms of, he's probably fatigued. It looks like the long COVID has had an effect, but also he's just not playing very well, and the team might need something different in that area. So I wouldn't mind seeing Nico Williams being given a start. I think he's nailed on to start in the game against Manchester United at the weekend. But if I'm playing it safe, and of course with these lineup predictions I kind of like to go with the most likely option, I think it will still be Trent Alexander-Arnold completing the back four. And then in front of them, I think we're going to stick with the 4-2-3-1 because it worked against Manchester United. It helped defensively, I think, as much as it helped attacking wise as well. You know, once Shaqiri came off and Curtis Jones came on and we reverted to a more normal 4-3-3, that lack of an extra attacker stopped Man U being penned in, and they actually had the better of the game after that. They create the clear-cut chances through Bruno and Pogba that if it wasn't for Alisson, one of those probably would have ended up going in and we lose the game. So I think the 4-2-3-1 dynamic at the moment actually works, and as I said, you will go through cycles in football where every shot you take goes in and then none of the shots you take go in no matter how hard you try. And the good thing about the 4-2-3-1 is it does create a lot of opportunities, both in and around the box. It means you've always got someone like Shaqiri lurking around the D. You've always got someone like Salah playing on the last man as well. There's an option out wide generally that's still quite close to goal, still in the box, that can then whip it back across or even take a shot on themselves. And it just, I think it creates more shots. Maybe 4-3-3 where the opposition comes onto you a little bit more, creates slightly more high quality chances. You might get a few more one-on-ones and stuff like that. But the problem is Liverpool aren't scoring one-on-ones at the moment, and it feels like we just need to create as many chances as possible. And eventually, hopefully, fingers crossed and touching wood and all that, the floodgates will open. And I think 4-2-3-1, as was showcased in the early stages of that game against Man United, is the best way to go in that regard. So I think we'll have two deep line midfielders. I reckon it's going to be Henderson and Thiago. I can imagine Gini Wijnaldum getting a rest simply because one of them's got to, and it will be good to see Henderson back in the midfield, marshalling the game from the centre. And also Thiago was fantastic in that 4-2-3-1 system against Manchester United, both going forward and defensively as well. Something that I think was underrated from his game in the Man U game was he was just so good in winning the ball back, pressing, tackling as well. He was the complete midfielder in every single way, so hopefully that continues with his performance in this game as well. In front of those two midfielders, I think we're going to see a few changes. I think Shaqiri stays in. The way Jurgen Klopp, there it goes again, spoke about Shaqiri in his press conference today, suggested that he's very pleased with how he's playing, but also it sounds like he wants us to play Shaqiri more. He spoke about getting rhythm. He spoke about getting back into the swing of things and, you know, adjusting to where the side is at the moment. And so with that in mind, I think it sounds like Shaqiri's going to get a few more starts, that Jurgen's decided that he's no longer going to be a fringe player who just plays in the cups, but he's going to be the player who shakes up this front three and gives it the kick up the backside that I think it very clearly needs. I also think Firmino might end up getting dropped for this game. You know, Jurgen was asked about Firmino's form in his press conference, and normally when Firmino's form comes up, Jurgen basically just bats it away and says there's nothing wrong with the way Firmino's playing. He's brilliant as he always is. He's crucial to the team as he always is, and I've got no problems with it. Normally just because Firmino's not scoring, but his form in general, especially his performance against Manchester United, was not up to scratch. And Jurgen spoke about how training is going to be the way that these players improve when they're in a little bit of a rut. So with that in mind, I think he maybe wants to take Firmino out of the limelight a bit, and I can see Takumi Minamino coming in for this game. Also because, I mean, Minamino, he played brilliantly against Crystal Palace. Liverpool have barely scored a goal since then, and yet he still can't get a look in the side. And it feels like if he's not getting it now, then by God, I don't know how he's going to get it. So I can see Minamino coming in from the start of this game. And also, we've seen in the past, having a member of the original front three on the bench can work in your favour. Being able to bring Firmino on if we're struggling to break the deadlock with half an hour to go is a great asset for Liverpool to have. We know Jurgen doesn't always make early substitutions. A lot of the time he likes to let the lads who started the game see it out for as long as possible. But what I think we have noticed is when one of those front three members is on the bench, they normally aren't on there for long. Normally by the time we get to about the hour mark, regardless of how the game's going, we will see them get on the pitch. So I think Firmino will be benched, but I think Jurgen Klopp will definitely be happy to have him in his arsenal as a player that he can throw on if things aren't going his way. And then apart from that, I reckon it's going to be business as usual. Sadio Mane playing on the left-hand side, and then Mo Salah, where I think he'll be best at the moment, not as, you know, the lad who's meant to create everything, who's meant to take on several players in a 20-yard mazy dribble, but the lad who simply stands in the box, receives the ball, and smacks it into the back of the net. That's what I think, regardless of what form he's in, he is always very good at doing. scoring, and I think that is the role that Jurgen Klopp will be giving him by playing as the central striker in this game. So taking a quick look at Burnley then, as I said, they will look to cause our defence problems regardless of who plays, but I think they have a certain style that I think by now we're all very much aware of. There's no real surprises when it comes to how Burnley set up, particularly in these games as well. You know, they will look to defend deep, they will look to create issues in the box with those two big centre forwards. I think that is why Jurgen Klopp has been a little bit tight-lipped, because if he says that Joel Matip's not going to play and it becomes more likely that Nat Phillips is in the box, then Burnley maybe alter their approach a little bit. They maybe don't even go for the two strikers up top and look to play possession a bit more and also counter-attacking, getting pacier, more technically gifted players on the pitch, because that's one issue they did have against Man United, was when they got forward and when Man U sat back because they'd gained that 1-0 lead, Burnley, while they were able to put pressure on, just didn't have the technical ability on the pitch to do anything about the chances that they had. Of course, they've got Jay Rodriguez as well, who's in a slightly different mould to what Ashley Barnes or Chris Wood bring. He's a little bit more sly, a little bit more closer to the ground in terms of using his low centre of gravity to dribble and run at defenders rather than just be a big lumping tank that flies in on crosses and stuff like that. So I think we're being tight-lipped because of that reason, because we don't want them to know exactly how to set up. But as I said, they have a very clear way of causing us issues, and it's something that under the circumstances could create problems. Listen, if Van Dijk and Matip were playing, I wouldn't be too worried. I'd say, listen, Burnley will do what Burnley do, and we'll probably do what we do and deal with it absolutely fine. But without Joel Matip in the box, without Virgil van Dijk in the box, Matip is good in the air, and that's why I want him on the pitch. But as I said, Fabinho isn't as effective, and that may be a little bit of an issue for Liverpool. And I know Burnley have lost their last couple of games, but they've been playing well. I'd watched a lot of the game against Manchester United, you know, very much with fingers and toes and everything else crossed that they'd get a result out of it. And Man United was struggling, you know. It took a deflected goal to get them in front, and after they went in front, Burnley actually had the better of the game. They had a lot of possession. They were in Man United's half. They looked like they might score. They had plenty of chances. It just didn't quite go their way in the end. So even though Burnley haven't been getting the results, they've definitely improved on, I think, the early stages of the season. And the only issue they do have is they've only scored 9 goals, which it doesn't matter where you are in the table or how good you are. You should be hitting double figures by this stage of the season. So hopefully that goes Liverpool's way. And even if they do manage to get chances, they don't manage to put them away. But things aren't going Liverpool's way at the moment, and it feels like sod's law that Burnley will be able to turn their form round, that they'll get a good goal, that they'll be able to sit on and they'll frustrate us and cause us problems. There is very much a script written for this match already, I think, with the way both teams' fortunes have been going in recent weeks. But what Liverpool have got to do is they've got to toss that script in the bin and show that they have the guts to take part in this title race, because, as I said at the top of the video, we don't really have any more ground to lose. We can't afford to drop any more points, especially because more drop points just puts us in an even bigger rut than we're in already. And it goes from being a blip to being not a crisis just yet, because, of course, we're still in the top 4. We're still Premier League champions. There's no chance Jurgen Klopp's going to lose his job or anything like that. But you do risk, if you go into somewhere like a month like February in bad form and losing pace with the top of the league, then at that point you're in serious danger of just falling out of the title race altogether. And regardless of what you think our chances are of winning the league this season, I think we all want to be at least up there in the conversation, feeling the drama of it all the way until the end of the season. So, as I said, it's going to be a difficult game. It's not really the game I think we want or need right now, but if Liverpool can turn things round and get 3 points, then it will be a brilliant match to give us a springboard to get our season back on track after what has been a difficult couple of weeks. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, as always, you know what to do. Hit the like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter. And I'll be back tomorrow night after we've hopefully got 3 points against Burnley. Until then, bye for now.